that means that in the future, there's going to be a blend of lawyers who are also computer scientists.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they don't have a choice. It's what
No,
it is.
not if you want to be a contract lawyer. I mean,
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Everything AI and Law podcast with Tolulope Awoyomi. And today I have a very distinguished guest. His name is Brian, and he is a leading lawyer with several awards. He is a computer scientist, a philosopher, and a host of the podcast Lessons from Leaders with Brian Beckcom. Hello, Brian. Welcome, and thank you for being here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Tolu. Thank you for having me on the show. You have an absolutely beautiful smile.
Thank you.
You make me want, it's like contagious. You make me want to smile when I see you smile.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so let's start with, when I read your profile, your bio, I was really impressed. You have a computer science degree, you're a lawyer, and a philosopher. How do you combine those three, and what inspired you to, be multifaceted?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I went to college back in the early 90s, and no internet, no cell phones, no social media, nothing like that. But these computers were starting to come along. I mean, computers have been around for sometimes since then, but not personal computers. And, the computers back when I was growing up were huge mainframes and stuff like that. So the personal computer had just kind of come around. The internet had been invented basically by the United States military, and it was just interesting to me. And so I decided, what the heck, I'll study computer science. I didn't realize how much math was going to be involved. So, but the philosophy piece came so the school I went to, Texas A&M, when you majored in computer science, you had to take another degree. And most people would do is they would do mathematics or physics or electrical engineering or something like that. And I had taken a couple philosophy courses, really enjoyed them, and decided, hey, I'll just take a philosophy degree. Believe it or not, and I didn't realize it at this at the time, Tolu, but the original computer scientists, a lot of them were philosophers. And that's not only true for computer science, I've since learned. Originally, science was not called science. Science was called natural philosophy. Philosophers were scientists. And even today, I would argue that the questions that we ask in science originate with philosophers. So philosophers are the ones that ask the questions, and then scientists are the ones that answer those questions. Now, how do you go from computer science and philosophy to law? That's even a little more strange, right? And so, but what I tell people, I've been saying this for quite some time, I spent 4 years in the computer labs during college, behind a computer screen with a bunch of nerds. And I was like, I don't know if I want to spend my whole life behind a computer screen with a bunch of nerds. And so I went to law school, and what do I do now? 20 years later, I spend my time behind a computer screen with a bunch of nerds. So, the original reason I went to law school is because I wanted to talk. I love to read, and I like to write. And all of those things I still get to do, but I also have a computer science degree, which has been extremely, extremely useful in my legal practice.
Wow. It's almost like you foresaw the future, right? Because now with AI tech, it's really important, and it's like an added advantage being a lawyer with that background, right?
I will tell you, I absolutely did not foresee the future, but you're right. You're right. Looking back on it, it's like I feel so lucky because all three of these subjects really combine a lot of things that are going on right now. So let me give you a perfect example of that. We talk about AI on your podcast a lot. AI is something that I'm very, very, very interested in. But there are three different kinds of questions surrounding AI, actually probably more than that, but there's the technical computer science type questions. What are we doing with AI? How are we building it? What can it do? Things like that. There's the legal questions with AI, and for example, Scarlett Johansson just got her voice stolen by Sam Altman at ChatGPT. I mean, the creepiest thing I've ever heard of. That guy, frankly, sounds like the biggest creep of all time. That's not a technical question. That's a legal question, right?
Right.
And then sitting on top of all that are questions about that are philosophical questions. So questions about, for instance, what artificial intelligence forces us to ask things like, what does it mean to be human? What is intelligence? Are there different kinds of intelligence? Those are not technical questions. Those are not legal questions. Those are philosophical questions. And so what I've been saying for quite some time is, if you want to answer technical questions, you ask the engineers and the technical people and the people that run these large social media companies and computer companies. But if you want to know answers to moral questions or ethical questions, these folks have nothing, no training, and they have nothing over your average run-of-the-mill philosopher in terms of answering those questions. But a lot of the time, I think we feel like because they've built these huge platforms, or because they built this iPhone, or because they built Google, that they have some special philosophical insight. And they don't. I mean, they might have some great technical insight, but asking philosophical questions is not the same thing as asking how do you program a large language model. So I feel really, really lucky because all of these things kind of converge on where we kind of are today.
I have a lot of questions from what you just said now. But the first thing I want to ask is, even if it's not really legal related, is how do we maintain the human touch and the human essence with AI? AI is invasive, literally invaded every single sector. No sector is spared. So how do we keep this human touch in the future?
That is a great question, and I do not know the answer to that. But I'll give you a good example. So, like I said earlier, you have an infectious smile. Like that is like being able to look at somebody. When I look at you and I see the way you smile, humans react to that in a certain way.
Right.
Right now, we're not quite there with artificial intelligence and robots and stuff. Right now we're in something called the uncanny valley. Have you ever heard of the uncanny valley?
I don't want to guess, but is it like in between the middle, right? No. Okay.
Yeah, so think about it this way, okay? So when you look, not to date myself, but if you watch, for example, the original Star Wars movies, it is absolutely crystal clear that R2-D2 is a robot. It's crystal clear that C-3PO is a robot. He's gold and metal and walks, weird.
Right.
And there's no question that they're robots. So humans don't have any bad reaction to that. But the closer and closer robots get to being human-like, interestingly enough, the creepier it gets, and the more we have a natural aversion to them. So the uncanny valley basically says the closer and closer that robots get to being human-like, the weirder they are to us. So imagine like a valley, like a chart going down until you can't tell the difference. And then once you can't tell the difference, then all bets are off. So that's like, I don't know if you've seen the TV series Westworld. Westworld is a great show about basically about robots that everybody thinks you can't tell the difference between whether they're human or not. And it asks a lot of very important philosophical questions. Like that show is a great TV series, but it's also great philosophy. And so, what is it? The question you ask is really, really deep. Like, what does it mean to be human in the first place? Is it the ability for us to talk like this and smile at each other? Well, I hope that's not what it is, because if that's what it is, computers are going to be able to do that just as well or better than us in the very near future. I hope it's something more than that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so let me go to the legal aspect now. So in your practice, how has AI been useful? I think I have an idea of the side you're on. Are you of the opinion that AI should be banned, should be like blocked, or you believe that AI has a transformative power to help accelerate productivity, and how have you used it in your legal practice?
I don't think it should be banned or blocked. I think we should consider at the edges whether there should be some sort of rules that govern AI. So, for just to use kind of an extreme example, building drone. Everybody knows drones, and there's all these AI controlled drones right now. Well, the military has drones that literally they're like self-fighting drones. They can go up in swarms and stuff like that, and then they're basically self-intelligent. They kind of run themselves. Those are really, really, really dangerous. The other thing that is really, really dangerous, in my opinion, is deepfake videos. And so, for your listeners that don't know what that is, that you can now basically, using AI, do a video and put words in Donald Trump's mouth or Barack Obama's mouth that they never said, and it's almost impossible to tell the difference. That is the reason that's so dangerous is not necessarily because you can make people say things that they didn't really say. That's not really why it's dangerous. It's dangerous because you can't trust anything. Like once we've lost that trust, we're really, really in a bad state. Like if you and I didn't agree on basic reality, then I'm not sure we could have any kind of conversation at all. And so deepfakes are really, really problematic. One thing that people don't, when people think about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I think people forget about what makes Bitcoin and cryptocurrency possible in the first place, which is the blockchain. The blockchain is the underlying technology, and the blockchain is what makes cryptocurrency possible to begin with. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is just it's basically like an app on the blockchain. So think of it like an app. Think about the blockchain as your iPhone, and think about Bitcoin as an app on your iPhone. But the real technology is the platform. It's the iPhone, or in this case, the blockchain. And what's so cool about the blockchain is it solves at least one problem in computer science. It's been an issue forever, and that is proof of identity online. So we do have technologies available that can basically stamp a video and say this is real or this is not real. And but that's one of the things that I really worry about a lot, or at least two of the things that I worry about a lot.
And how do you think the law can help guide that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we always have this give and take between the speed of technology and the speed of the legal system. Technology is super fast and the legal system super slow. Yeah, and so by the time, like for instance, when Microsoft got prosecuted by the government for being a monopoly, which they clearly were, by the time they got in trouble, they had already lost their monopoly. I mean, it had taken like 10, 15 years or something like that. So there's a real issue with how fast technology moves and how fast the legal system moves. So what you need, and there's also, by the way, there's a problem with the people that are passing the laws, because a lot of them don't know a damn thing about technology. And so how are they going to write laws? How do they even understand what the issues are if they don't understand the underlying technology? So I think we need better lawmakers, and I think we need to pass basically a framework. Here's the framework in which we're going to operate, because you can't account for every little individual instance. So you might have something like you can make deepfakes illegal, but then how do you police that, right? So that's a problem right there. You could say, for instance, we will not allow people to use ChatGPT to steal people's voices like Sam Altman did, right? Like he literally stole somebody's voice, and he should face some repercussions for that, I think. But and you know, Scarlett Johansson is suing him, so maybe he will. But by the time she wins that case and he pays her $50 million, he's already going to be worth $50 billion, and it's just like writing a check for $1 to him. So it really doesn't have much of a influence on him. And so, but the point is it's a really hard question, Tolu, and like you're putting your fingers right on the hardest questions in this area. You know, do we regulate it? If we do, how do we regulate it? How fast do we regulate it? How do we account for the fact that things are going to be changing so quickly? I mean, it's a challenge. There's no question about that. But I think I guess what I'm trying to say is the fundamental thing we need smart people that are aware of the technology, that are aware of the issues, and that are working hard on it. And I don't have a ton of confidence right now that our leadership, at least most of them, are those kind of people.
So hearing, I think, would you suggest that there should be maybe a conference or a meeting point of the computer scientists, the engineers, the lawmakers, and maybe philosophers sitting under one roof and discussing the issue? And maybe if the lawmakers don't understand the technology, the scientists could explain to them so that we have a robust framework to guide this emerging technologies.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That the trouble you're going to have is try explaining a large language model to an 85-year-old senator who's been in Congress for 60 years. You know what I mean? It doesn't really work that well. And so, and the other thing is, all the engineers in Silicon Valley think they're smarter than everybody else about everything, right? I mean, it's kind of like the doctors. The doctors are incredibly smart for the most part, but not about anything other than medicine, but they think they're good businessmen. They think they're good at accounting. They think they're good at marketing, everything else. It's just like the engineers. They think they can, because they can sit behind a computer screen and write a couple programs, that they're moral philosophers. People, I think, sometimes believe that just because you have a lot of money means you're really smart. And that is not the case at all. All it means when you have a lot of money is either you're really lucky or you're really good at making money, or some combination of both. It doesn't mean you're a good person. It doesn't mean you're any smarter than anybody else. But in our society, a lot of people interpret having a lot of money as having a lot of brains. And so getting the philosophers together with the tech people is difficult, because the tech people don't want to hear that for example, they don't want to hear that some of the social media stuff is destroying the infrastructure of humanity. They don't want to hear that, because all they think about is everything we do is a net positive, and it's not. Some of it is a net negative, and so it's hard to get people together like that. It's a great idea, but in practice it can be a little challenging.
Challenging.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So let's. That was a very heated answer there. So let's switch gears a bit. So AI in the legal sector or the legal field. So far, how has it transformed the legal system? I know that some lawyers have gotten into trouble for trusting AI too much, but how about the flip side, the positive?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been using large language models primarily. So AI. So let's make sure that we're using our terminology the same way.
Yeah, right.
So
okay.
Artificial intelligence. There's different types of artificial intelligence. There's artificial general intelligence, and then there's more specific artificial intelligence. So your thermometer, for instance, is artificially intelligent. It can tell when the temperature goes up, and it takes some actions as a result of that. That doesn't mean it's generally intelligent. It can't read a recipe and make toast. But for that one specific task, it can do it. A chess program, same thing. Artificially intelligent. Way, way, way more intelligent than human beings will ever be. But it can't do anything else. So it's not artificially generally intelligent. So artificial intelligence is already baked into a lot of the programs and stuff we use in the law, and has been for a long time, right? So, I mean, I'll just give you some silly example, and a lot of this stuff just flies right over people's heads. They don't notice it because it's part of the fabric of what we do. But a lot of email programs have sorting features or labeling features. I mean, that's artificial intelligence, and so we already use it on a day-to-day basis. I can tell you that you're going to start seeing on iPhones a lot more on-device artificial intelligence. So a lot more predictive stuff. Like you like to do certain things during certain times of the day, I'm sure, and your phone will start helping you with that. Your phone will be, oh, it's time to cook dinner. On Fridays, this is what you normally like to cook. Would you like me to order some stuff for you on Instacart and then select a movie? So that kind of stuff is already here. What's really been interesting to me in the legal field is the large language models, which is a form of artificial intelligence. So large language model is ChatGPT, Claude, Anthropic, stuff like that. These are really, really cool for the law. They've also, like you said, gotten people in trouble. So, and the reason they get people into trouble, I think, is because they're so magical to people and they're so human-like that people don't understand like what's actually going on underneath the hood. So all a large language model really is a prediction engine. So like it'll take the word "the," for instance, and one column, and then it'll predict what the next word will be based on a lot of different factors, and then it'll just keep iterating on that. That's not artificial general intelligence. It's not even close to it. But it's really, really good at manipulating language. And so we've started using large language models we started using them about 2.5 years ago. And for some stuff, it's great. For some stuff, it is terrible. Let me give you an example of something it's really good for. So in my business, I do a lot of drafting of questions and answers and stuff like that. It is awesome. I used to have to, it would take me hours to put together a list of 30 or 40 questions. Now I can do it in 10 seconds, right? I still have to check it, but boy, is it good. The other thing is generating ideas. So one thing I like to do in my legal writing oftentimes is I'll have a quote at the very top which kind of encapsulates the main point I'm trying to make in whatever I'm writing. And you can be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to come up with a quote that encapsulates this idea. Give me 5 examples. And man, it is really, really good at that. What it's not so good at, interestingly, are a lot of large language models. It's terrible at arithmetic, like basic arithmetic. It's awful because that's not what it's designed to do. I think they are building some modules to kind of plug in to make it a little bit better.
Yes.
It's also bad at legal research. They call it hallucinations. It just makes stuff up. And you got to be really cautious as a lawyer. Like that's where lawyers are getting in trouble for, just believing it and not even checking it. That's a huge no-no. So those are areas where it's really, really, really cool. There's going to be areas where you'll have your own personal AI that'll answer all your emails for you. That'll be interesting because that means email's going away. And, what's going to happen then? We use Slack in our firm. I don't know if you know the company Slack. It's really good. Yeah. They're starting to release some AI stuff. So every morning I get a AI-generated summary of all my Slack channels. I can do searches with AI now. That's pretty neat, but it's still not anywhere close to being as accurate as human. So it's a little bit of the Wild West, Tolu, in terms of how AI and large language models are impacting the legal field, but they're absolutely having a huge impact and will continue to do so. Where it goes, nobody knows the answer to that question. But
that was a question I was about to ask you.
Yeah, I tell people I don't have any idea where it's going, and anybody that tells you they do is making it up. But I do know that AI and large language models will be a huge part of any business that relies on language, which is most businesses. And I'm sure you've already seen this, and your listeners have probably already seen this. YouTube now, I'll bet you it's close to half AI generated videos and voices. And I just started noticing this a couple years ago. And so at some point, YouTube maybe is 90% AI. I don't know. But anybody who's trying to predict this is going to probably be wrong.
But do you think AI would give lawyers a run for their money?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. And there's different kinds of lawyers. So, and there's certain legal, like types of legal practice that will no longer exist because of AI. Just like there will be certain types of accounting practices, certain types of financial investing, all sorts of different professional fields that will be completely wiped out by AI, like subspecialties. And so, like, pure contract lawyers are now going to become computer programmers, basically using smart contracts and putting these contracts on blockchains and things like that. So, all I know, this is one thing I do know about the future. It's not going to be the same as it is today.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
just
one
to
thing I do
follow
know.
on what you said, for example, contract lawyers would become computer programmers.
Yeah.
So that means that in the future, there's going to be a blend of lawyers and who are also computer scientists.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they don't have a choice. It's what
No,
it
not
is.
if you want to be a contract lawyer. I mean, but again, this is going to be very high level computer programming. When I think of a computer science, what I think a computer scientist is one of the main things I think of is somebody who thinks algorithmically. Okay, so somebody that can basically put forward an algorithm is just like a menu. If this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. Recursive loops, things of that nature. Smart contracts are a way, basically, you and I enter into a contract. If certain conditions occur, then you pay me, and we don't have to do anything. It just happens automatically. Like there's literally like a digital contract that will track. For instance, let's say I'm buying a house from you. The second that you transfer the title over to my account, my money goes over to your account. And it's not like today where we have to go sit down and fill out a bunch of paperwork and call the bank and all this stuff. It just all happens seamlessly with no human involvement. And that's what I'm talking about. So it's not that you're going to be sitting there writing in a Python or Objective-C or something like that. You're going to have to be thinking like a computer scientist. And thinking like a computer scientist means thinking algorithmically.
Awesome. That's so insightful. I'm sure my legal listeners would be glad to hear that and get a foresight into the future on what they should start learning.
Yeah.
So, how do you think the legal education should change or would change as a result of AI? Because they can't keep doing what they're doing because AI is almost like a disruption, right?
Yeah. I think, so it's just like philosophy. To me, law is philosophy around what we as a society think is right and wrong, moral and ethical. Like when we write laws, what we're really saying is we think it's immoral for you to take other people's property, or we think it's immoral for somebody to kill or assault somebody. It's like a public statement of ethics and morality. So law in many ways is philosophy. And for over 100 years, probably more than that actually, the traditional way of teaching law students is called the Socratic method, which is like a question and of course Socrates was the original philosopher, right? So like philosophy is deeply, deeply, deeply embedded in law. Matter of fact, law is philosophy of a certain type. And so I think I think that's a time-tested method of teaching people to think a certain way, lawyers to think and I wouldn't mess with that, quite frankly. Because I think the problem that we get into is when we try to anticipate everything, every new change, sometimes we're going to be right, sometimes we're going to be wrong. But when we're talking about a general way of thinking and reasoning, if it's good reasoning and good thinking, that applies no matter what the situation is. So I think we should keep that general kind of approach. I don't think we should get too in the weeds. But then, of course, and that should be like the fundamental way of teaching law should be a way of thinking. And that shouldn't really change that much. But then on top of that, you can have classes on things like cybersecurity or the blockchain or Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or AI or deepfakes. stuff like that. So you can add that on top of it and be a little bit more timely. But again, the fundamental structure of it, the way of thinking, is just like philosophy. Like the way you think about philosophical problems doesn't really change that much. The way you think about engineering problems or mathematical problems, like calculus, for instance, in addition to being a very, very powerful tool, is also a really powerful method of reasoning, okay? And it doesn't change. It doesn't change. It's independent of what's going on around it. So if I were running a law school, not only would I focus on teaching my kids how to think, or my students how to think, but I would double down on that, because I think that's even more important nowadays. Like, I don't want to know how much you know about cryptocurrency until I know how much you know about the issues surrounding cryptocurrency, if that makes sense. I think it's more important, and I think that's where the Silicon Valley folks get in trouble. They not all of them, but some of them, they know so much about the technical stuff that they get completely bogged down in the details and they forget about the bigger picture.
Awesome. I could go on and on and on, but I just want to respect your time. And
Yeah.
so one last question. What's your final thoughts? Yes.
It's an exciting time. It really is an exciting time to be alive. It's a danger from a technological standpoint, legal standpoint. It's a dangerous time in many ways, for some of the reasons we've talked to, but it's a really, really exciting time. I'm generally an optimist, and I think technology is generally good, and I think, we're going to cure cancer, we're going to cure all sorts of maladies, we're going to make our society better. It's going to be bumpy. There's going to be plenty of problems along the road, but I think in general the arc of humanity is heading in the right direction. So I'm excited about it. I'm motivated to see what happens. I'm nervous a little bit about some of the bumps we're going to meet on the road, but I think humans have shown that they can handle just about anything. So overall, I'm optimistic.
Right. And it's almost the same way with every emerging technology over the years. Problems first, then we humans, we always find a way around it and solve it. Thank
That's
you
right.
so much, Brian. It's been an amazing time with you, gleaning from your invaluable insights, experience, and knowledge. And I'm sure our listeners really enjoyed it. And leave your comments or your reviews and let's know what you think. And until next time, stay tuned, subscribe, follow, and see you. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care and bye-bye.
Thank you, Tolu.